Hello students, welcome to your channel Zebish English Classes. I hope you all are fine, and in today's video lecture I will be doing with you the summary of Act 1 Scene 2 in the Tempest. Actually this Act 1 Scene 2 in the Tempest is a large scene, but it is very important because it is an introductory scene as well. It introduces some major characters to the readers as well as some important stories to the readers. And these are the stories that play an important role in framing the entire plot. So, this is an important scene. Let us start the scene. It begins on this note that Prospero and Miranda are standing on the shore of the island and they have just witnessed the shipwreck. And Miranda, being a very delicate and a sensitive girl, gets really upset about that incident and she asks her father to ensure that nobody in the shipwreck, in the ship, whoever got victimized by the shipwreck shouldn't get harmed anyway. So, listening to that, Prospero decides to tell a story of her childhood days to her. But it has already happened, fewer times that Prospero begins to tell the stories related to her childhood days to Miranda, but then he doesn't complete the stories. He just stops telling all of a sudden and does some charm upon her. So, right now, also, it will happen in the same way that he begins to tell a story to Miranda, but then he doesn't complete the story. After telling her some part of the story, he would perform a charm upon her so that she falls asleep and she would fall asleep consequently. So, the story that is shared by Prospero with Miranda is that very important incident of her childhood days when she was barely 3 years old, and how Prospero's younger brother Antonio had thrown them, out of the palace. So, for telling this, first of all, Prospero had to tell his daughter Miranda that he was a Duke of Milan. So, he told her how he was a Duke of Milan and how he had some quest, to learn more, and he wanted to learn the art of magic. For that, he had to indulge himself into learning for a long period of time, and due to that he couldn't carry on with the responsibilities of the kingdom. So for a time being, he had entrusted his younger brother Antonio with the responsibilities of his kingdom. But then Antonio started enjoying as a substitute king so much that it developed a desire or an aim of becoming a real king in the heart of Antonio. And as a result of which, Antonio decided to take all the measures to become a real king. And greed had grown in him to a large extent, and he had become very ambitious to become a king. So he decided to go against his brother, against his elder brother, who was a rightful heir actually. So he decided to go against his brother, and for that he needed some assistance. So he sought help from the king of Naples named Alonso, and Alonso provided him whatever required help was. But then Alonso had also put forth some terms and conditions to Antonio. Antonio was so much ambitious to become a king that he got agreed to all the terms and conditions that were put forth by Alonso. And this is how Alonso also got ready to help Antonio, and he rendered whatever required help was. So Antonio had demanded Alonso to send his army in the midnight and to attack on the palace so that Prospero, along with his daughter Miranda, could be sent out, could be thrown out of the kingdom, could be thrown out of the palace, sorry. And it happened in the same way that it was attacked in the midnight, and Prospero, along with his daughter, who was barely 3 years old, they were thrown out of the palace. And however, Antonio had the option to kill him as well. Antonio could easily do that. But then Antonio did not want to stain his hand with blood and wanted to do this project with white hands. He did not want to, go noticed, especially in the eyes of the subject who already loved Prospero a lot. And therefore, he decided to do it very cleanly, and he sought help from Alonso. Alonso had ensured कि मिरांडा को और प्रॉस्पेरो को ले जा करके एक पैथेटिक कंडीशन की बोर्ड पे छोड़ दिया जाए, और जिस पर छोड़ दिया जाएगा, अगर उनको इन द सी उनको छोड़ दिया जा रहा है एक पैथेटिक कंडीशन वाली बोर्ड पे, तो इट इज़ in itself is enough to kill somebody, and your intentions are very clear, and that you have assured on your end that the person is surely going to die. But then fortunately it happened कि जिस काउंसलर को भेजा था अलोंसो ने, उनके काउंसलर का नाम है गोंजालो. ही इज़ एन ओल्ड मैन एंड ही इज़ क्वाइट अ गुड पर्सन. ही इज़ अ वर्चुअस कैरेक्टर इन द प्ले. He was sent by Alonso to ensure this job, to ensure that this job is done, that they are actually thrown and they are made to sit in that pathetic boat, and they are left in the mid of the sea while there might be flood or anything, and they should be left to die. But then Gonzalo, who was a counselor of Alonso, did something really, contrary to the instructions that were given to him. He provided the necessary eatable stuffs and then water and the books as well to Prospero, so that Prospero could continue to learn his art of magic. This is how whatever required help was there, it was provided by Gonzalo to Prospero. And that helped Prospero a lot during his journey. However, the destination itself was not known to Prospero, but then Prospero reached to this shore of this island. And since then, he began his life on this island, and today is the day when he has grown old and Miranda has grown young. So, this is how he told Miranda this much of the story. Till this part, when she comes to know how she has reached this island, he tells her so that she comes to know that this is how she had reached to this island, and that she was not meant to live here, that she was not born here. So this much he tells her, and then he does some charm with the help of which she falls asleep so that she doesn't ask any more questions. And then in the scene, Ariel arrives, and Ariel is a spirit, and Prospero talks to Ariel, and in the conversation it comes out that Prospero himself was responsible for the tempest that had occurred in the Act 1, Scene 1 of the play. So we come to know how Prospero is giving tasks to Ariel to ensure that all those people who were in the ship and they were somehow related to the incident, and they had something to do with the plan of Prospero, they should get scattered, but it should be ensured by Ariel that they all reach this island. This was the task given by Prospero to Ariel. And Ariel also assured Prospero that the task would be performed very properly, and that all those characters, all those people would surely reach this island and would get scattered. So they would reach here scattered in different groups or something. And Ariel also told Prospero about this, that Ferdinand, who is a son of Alonso, is all alone. He should be left all alone. This was a plan that Prospero had devised, and it was time to execute it, so it had been executed as well. That means it had been initiated, at least. It had just begun the plan. The implementation of the plan had begun by that time. And its beginning was actually the Tempest. And now the rest of the things would follow. So we get to see that Ariel reminds Prospero that Ariel should be set free, as per the promise made by Prospero. But then Prospero gets upset about it and scolds Ariel and reminds Ariel of the story of the incident that had taken place in its life, and tells how when Prospero had reached this island, at that time Ariel was imprisoned in a cloven pine in the branch of a tree, and how it was imprisoned by a witch named Sycorax, who was banished from Algeria and had reached this place, this island. So Sycorax was a witch who had reached this island after being banished from Algeria. And Sycorax had imprisoned Ariel in a branch of the tree. And then Sycorax died as well without releasing Ariel. So Ariel would have been in prison for all its life hadn't Prospero reached that island and helped Ariel to get out of that imprisonment. So Prospero reminds Ariel of how he had rendered a helping hand when Ariel was in need, and how Prospero had set Ariel free from that imprisonment, which could have been lifelong. And asks Ariel to make a promise that Ariel wouldn't ever ask for or remind Prospero for setting him free, and that Prospero would set him free as soon as his plan is well executed and his goal is achieved. And this is what Prospero tells Ariel, to which Ariel replies that Ariel wouldn't ever asks or reminds Prospero about setting him free, and that he would simply carry out the tasks quietly and politely, humbly, without making any complaint. So this is how it goes on, and Ariel is given the task and Ariel goes away from there. Ariel is given the task of changing himself into a nymph. Now nymph is a maiden who generally lives in water or in woods, so you can say jalpari kind of a thing. And Ariel asks sorry Prospero asks Ariel to become a nymph and also become invisible. It should only remain visible to Prospero. So this is how the task is given, and a nymph is supposed to actually sing a song and play such enchanting music that this Ferdinand should start following the music as soon as he gets to listen. And following the music, Ferdinand should reach the spot where Miranda is, where Prospero is. This is what Prospero wants. Prospero wants Ferdinand to reach the spot where Miranda is so that they can get to see each other. And right, mm, at the first sight itself, they should fall in love with each other. This is what Prospero has planned. So this much is done, and then as soon as Ariel leaves from there, Miranda wakes up. And waking up, Miranda realizes that there was some kind of a heaviness in the story due to which she had fallen asleep. However, she is not aware of the fact that this was a charm performed by her father himself. Then this Prospero is seen conversing with Caliban and asking him to perform his duties, to which Caliban replies in a very bad way and begins to curse Prospero. So here we get to know another story that is an important aspect in framing the plot. So we get to know this story about Caliban. Who is a Caliban? It is somehow related to the story we have just learned about Sycorax. Caliban is actually a son ऑफ साइकोरैक्स। इसका मतलब वो एक विच का बेटा है, चुड़ैल का बेटा है. सो ही इज ऑल्सो वॉट अ मॉन्स्टर, Caliban. And Caliban was given a lot of love and a lot of importance by Prospero when Prospero had reached this island, because Caliban had also tried to provide a lot of help to Prospero. But then it happened that Caliban turned out to be a monster actually just because Prospero had given enough space to Caliban in his own cave. But then Caliban tried to rape Prospero's daughter Miranda, and since then Prospero just threw him out of his cave and never allowed him to be his friend, and rather enslaved him since then. So, as a result of that servitude, now Caliban is supposed to serve Prospero. But Caliban feels very exasperated about it just because he is a son of Sycorax and he thinks that this island belonged to Sycorax, his mother. Just because his mother was pregnant at that time when she was banished from Algeria and she had reached this island. So she had given birth to Caliban in this island itself, and therefore Caliban thinks that this island belongs to him and that he is an owner of this island, and Prospero had arrived at this place later on. But then Prospero began to dominate Caliban and enslaved him. But then Caliban does not realize his mistake, and what he tried to do is not realized by him. He still talks in that way. So, this is how we get to know the story of Caliban and how Caliban is related to Sycorax and this all. So, this story is discussed while Prospero is chiding or scolding Caliban for not performing his duties without complaint and without abuses. And he also threatens him, to cause him cramps and all if he does not perform the duties with respect. So this is how Caliban is threatened, and then he begins to do his job. You can say peacefully, or not exactly peacefully, but silently, I should say. Yeah. Then it happens that Ariel has till then performed his task by getting Ferdinand there with the help of the charm of the music that Ariel had played. So Ferdinand is led into the scene there where Miranda and Prospero are standing, and Miranda is shown Ferdinand by Prospero. That means Prospero ही दिखाता है मिरांडा को कि फर्डिनेंड वहाँ पर खड़ा हुआ है. And as soon as Miranda sees him, she falls in love with him because she hasn't seen any other human being before besides her own father and herself. So she falls in love with him, and Prospero intentionally wanted that to happen. He actually loved it that his plan was coming out to be successful. But then when he saw that when he saw that Miranda had fallen in love with Ferdinand, and he, obviously with the help of his charm and also due to their attraction towards each other, Ferdinand would fall in love as well with Miranda as soon as he gets to see her. So Prospero here would try to obstruct by saying this to Ferdinand, that Ferdinand is merely a kind of a detective who has come to this island so that he can own the island. When Ferdinand introduces himself as a prince of Naples to Miranda, and Prospero is very well aware of it as a fact, just because Prospero knows about it, that he is Ferdinand, the son of Alonso. But still, he would pretend to be unaware of all the things, and he would deliberately call him a detective and would scold him and threaten him to imprison so that he can obstruct in their feeling of love. He can cause an impediment or obstruction in their relationship because he thinks that delaying their meeting would rather enhance their love and would also make Ferdinand realize the importance or the cost or the worth of Miranda in his life. So, for that reason, he prefers to do so. However, his actual plan was this only, that his daughter Miranda and Ferdinand should fall in love with each other, because their love will climax into their marriage, and their marriage will turn out to be a turning point in the entire plot, and it will change the circumstances of Prospero upside down by fetching him back his kingdom and by making his own daughter a queen of Naples. So, this is how this scene comes to an end. I hope you understood this scene. Thank you so much for watching.